A director, somebody who controls a film's artistic and dramatic aspects, most of the time at least. You got famous directors like Francis Ford Coppola, Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese, Wes Anderson, Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, Tim Burton, Werner Herzog, and so many others that are loved and celebrated. My favorite is Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite and Memories of Murder. Those are all on some level beloved by massive audiences. But then you have those directors that aren't. I wouldn't call anyone a terrible filmmaker, but there are a lot of directors who are divisive overall. And for me, I have one director that I don't really enjoy, and that's Michael Bay. We aren't gonna look at what he produced, only what he directed. Also, this is not a hate video on Michael Bay himself, just his movies, because he is just a human after all. What I see in Michael Bay is that he loves action, maybe a bit too much. His movies, while on an action standpoint, are visually pretty decent, but he doesn't know how to handle his characters or story for that matter. Take the Transformers movies. Their CG and visual effects and action are all pretty good to decent, but I do not care for Sam Witwicky. I do not care about Megan Fox. Then we get the sequel, a sequel that has donks humping each other. Further than that, I don't have to say anything. This is a clear representation of when a story doesn't matter, while Bay is thinking about action, 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 and action. Story gets forgotten. The story in a movie is very important. It's how you will connect with a movie's characters in around a 1.5 hour runtime. Some of the best movies ever made have great stories, like Lord of the Rings and Robots. This doesn't mean movies without story don't work. Hell, one of my favorite movies ever made is Napoleon Dynamite, a movie that has no story structure whatsoever. The problem is that Michael Bay's movies think they have a deep story, but they don't. Take Ambulance, for example. I just saw it like a few hours ago when writing this, and the story was so confusing. First, I thought it was about an ex-criminal going back to his old crew and robbing banks, but then it turns into a 2-hour-long car chase with sloppy dialogue. Pain and Gain tries to have a story at least, but it falls completely flat. It's sloppily put together and feels kinda disconnected in some areas. I was genuinely confused of what was going on and what it was trying to do. Again, a major example is the Transformers movies. They try to have a deep story and characters, but it falls flat because the execution is non-existent. These movies try and fail to be deep. And again, this doesn't mean a movie needs to be deep to be good, but as I said, these movies try to be deep, but fail so hard they do. Then you have like Six Underground, which just doesn't try, as it's just your standard Ryan Reynolds straight to streaming flick. Also want to point out as my last point is that the action in the Bay movies is somewhat decent, but it's over the top and most of the time basic at the same time. If you've seen a lot of action movies, then you have seen Michael Bay's worst version of all that action. This mostly is a flaw in the Transformers movies, but sometimes I don't even know what's going on. Did I already mention that I don't like Michael Bay's movies?